analysis on President Biden's historic decision to end his re-election campaign and what comes next. We are joined once again by Peter Loge, Director and Associate Professor of the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University. Nice to see you again, Professor.
Always great to be with you.
You and I talked about this before. Why aren't we talking about Kamala Harris? Now we're talking about Kamala Harris. So the president has stepped aside, endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, who has spent most of her career as a prosecutor. So she knows how to make an argument and make her case. What does she need to do to first convince the Democrats that she is the right candidate to beat Donald Trump?
Well, the first group of Democrats that matter are the 4,600 delegates to the convention, and she appears to be doing a pretty good job of that. As you said, working the phones. She's lined up endorsements of most of the leading Democrats, including many of the people who would be her would-be rivals. The next step is persuading the American people, and that's a long, hard process of introducing yourself to most voters who don't know or certainly don't know her as well as you do in the Bay Area.
We certainly are very familiar with Kamala Harris here. She's a woman of color, and from California. Those may not be popular characteristics in other parts of the country. So how does she win over those American voters?
Well, the first group of voters, the Democrats who would vote for a Democrat no matter what, as the person your correspondent talked to said they'd vote for a stick. There are the other voters, though, a lot of maybe suburban women, maybe people who dislike or distrust Trump, but who are also concerned about inflation, who might take a look at Harris and say, you know what, she's younger, she understands concerns about women's right to access to health care and to abortion. She understands the challenges of being somebody, frankly, who's younger and grew up in a different time than President Biden, a bit more energy, a bit more pep in her step. Maybe that will be enough.
What do you think are the critical states and areas that she really needs to focus on?
You know, the map doesn't change. It's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, a handful of others, maybe Arizona. California, as you say, if it's not an issue, if California is an issue, then, you know, the election's already over. I think she's going to have to work hard to persuade voters who are concerned about Israel and Gaza that, you know, her hand on the tiller would make the situation better. But most of us, most of the time, are concerned about the cost of things like gas, groceries, rent, healthcare. And she has to tell the story that under the past 4 years, wages have been going up, the market's up, unemployment's down, inflation's down, and they should continue that trend. But it's not an easy sell.
As Kamala Harris gets to work and heads across the country to convince voters, the Republicans also need to change their strategy. They've been focused on running against President Biden. So what do they need to do to shift?
I don't think they need to change it so much as they'll add to it, right? Because she still has the word Biden attached to her. The Republicans have been trying to run on immigration, inflation, and chaos for a while. What they'll get to do is say that Vice President Harris was in charge of the southern border. So if you don't like what Biden was doing, you're really going to dislike what Harris is doing. There are already conspiracy theories swirling that she's part of some grand cover-up about the true state of Biden's health. And I also think you're going to see some fake groups, really conservatives pretending to be liberals, coming at her from the left. As you know better than anybody, she's not a darling of the left on criminal justice issues. And I think we're going to see some people trying to make hay of that to peel off liberal voters and get them to stay home.
All right. Again, certainly very interesting times. Professor Peter Loge at the George Washington University, thank you for your insight.
Thanks as always. See you next time.